Hi, everyone. Thanks for attending our BSW Program Application Workshop. My name is Elizabeth Bittis, and I'm the Director of Academic Advising in the College of Social Work.
Hi, everyone. My name is Anna Renzetti, and I am a career coach in the Career and Professional Development Center here at the University of Utah. I work very closely with the social work program, primarily supporting prospective and current bachelor's of social work students. So we're excited to have you with us today and share with you some tips and tricks for how to stand out on your BSW application.
Thanks, Anna. Just a point of clarification, this is our Bachelor of Social Work Application Workshop. If you want some general information about the program itself, you can visit socialwork.utah.edu/advising or email bsw@utah.edu for more information on how to register for or obtain the recorded version of our general information session about the Bachelor of Social Work program at the University of Utah. Today, we're going to dive in and we're really going to talk about how to help your Bachelor of Social Work application stand out and be competitive. You have a really wonderful team that you can reach out to for support after viewing this recording. So if you find that you have questions or concerns, we have our academic advising team. Again, my name is Elizabeth. We also have Eli, Delva, and Elisa available to assist you. And of course, our wonderful Anna, our career coach as well. And we will share some information at the end for contact as well if you didn't get that. So right now, I just want to give you a brief overview of what's required when someone chooses to apply for the Bachelor of Social Work program. How will they know if they've met the requirements to proceed with the application? So first of all, you need to be admitted to the University of Utah to start our program. So if you are looking at this as a prospective transfer student, you do need to simultaneously apply for the University of Utah as well as the Bachelor of Social Work program. And those are two distinct applications. Both need to be done. Sometimes I get questions from students around timeline for this. They wonder, do I need to have already heard back from the University of Utah about my admission status before I can proceed with the Bachelor of Social Work application? You don't have to wait to hear back, but you do need to get both of them done because you will need to ultimately be admitted to both the institution and the program before you can enroll in our courses. So if you do have questions about transfer or the process for admission to the University of Utah, again, you can reach out to us at bsw@utah.edu. We can direct you to some great resources in the Office of Admissions. Or you can also go directly to the admissions website at admissions.utah.edu. So again, need to be matriculated with the University of Utah. Do apply though on time for the Bachelor of Social Work as well. We admit twice a year. We have an October 1st deadline every year for those who want to start in spring semester, which actually begins in January every year. And then we have an April 1st deadline for those who want to start the program in fall semester, which begins in August every year. You do want to meet with an advisor, if at all possible, because we tend to find that people who meet with a social work academic advisor during the application process have better results. They're able to troubleshoot concerns that they have. They're able to hear from us what makes a competitive application, and we're here to support you throughout that process. So we do ask that you meet with one of us. We do ask also that you have a minimum GPA of 2.35 for the Bachelor of Social Work application. Of course, higher is better. You don't want to aim for the minimum, but we know that academic struggles can occur. So the minimum that we require for your application to be reviewed is a cumulative 2.35. The higher your GPA, the more competitive your application may be. Our prerequisite courses are as follow, and I know that if you're viewing this, by the way, as a prospective transfer student, you may not have courses that match these exact course numbers, so I'll provide general titles as well. So we require an introductory social work class and social welfare class. So Social Work 1010 at the University of Utah is the name of our course that counts, and it's Introduction to Social Work and Social Welfare. We also require Sociology 1010, which is Introduction to Sociology. psychology 1010, which is general psychology. We require political science 1100, which is US national government. Now, for psychology and political science, we will accept the AP versions of these if you got a score of 3 or better. So, in other words, if you got an AP score of a 3 or better in psychology, then we will accept that advanced placement score in place of the course. Similarly, with the US government, a 3 or better would satisfy this. However, for the government requirement, it does have to be US government. It cannot be US history or US civ. It has to be government. For the math requirement, generally the math at the University of Utah that we steer students to is the Math 1030 quantitative reasoning course. We know that sometimes students want more of a challenge. So if you've taken college algebra, that's fine too. Sometimes we have students who've done even higher, like calculus. But the minimum math that we require to be finished when you start the program is our Math 1030 or its equivalent. We also require that the lower division writing requirement be finished. And for us at the University of Utah, that's writing 2010. You also want to be noting that you, by the time that you've applied to the program, you're mostly done with your general education, and that by the time you start, you could be missing up to 2 of your intellectual education requirements, but you cannot be missing math or writing gen ed. So what this could look like is you could be pacing to start the program, but missing fine arts and 1 humanities. That's okay. We can tie those into your graduation plan and have you do those while you're in the program. But if you're missing 3, 4, 5 general education classes, and especially if you're going to be missing math or writing, then you're not eligible yet to apply. If you have questions about what this looks like for you, since every individual is different, please meet with an academic advisor in the College of Social Work. We can help you map out the rest of the courses that you need and when is most appropriate for you to apply to the program. Again, some of these course numbers may differ for your transfer institution. So that's another reason to meet with an advisor to verify that the courses that you're taking at your home institution actually do correspond and articulate to the courses at the U that we require. We also require for the application that you submit all of your college or university transcripts. That's for any college credits that you've attempted. So that could be things like concurrent enrollment, or that could be where you've actually matriculated at an institution of higher ed. We do not need your high school transcripts for the Bachelor of Social Work program. We will also be requiring that you upload a personal statement that has very specific requirements and questions, and we'll be diving more into detail about that shortly. We require that in your personal statement, as well as the resume that you're going to be submitting, that you provide descriptions of relevant work or volunteer experience in a human services area. So we'll be talking more about what constitutes related experience shortly, but keep in mind that if you're thinking about applying to the program, you're going to need to have content for your resume and personal statement. So this is a good time for you to be thinking about paid work or unpaid work that's related to social work. We also ask that you have 2 letters and recommendation forms from people who can vouch for you and your academic or social work abilities. So we will talk about what constitutes a strong recommendation soon, but be thinking about who might be able to recommend you for the program. You'll need a minimum of 2 recommendations. We will read up to a maximum of 3. Right now, we're going to give you a short overview of what the online application looks like and where you can find that. So if you went to socialwork.utah.edu/BSW, you would come to our Bachelor of Social Work homepage, and then there's an apply button. What we're showing you now is what you see when you click on the apply button for the Bachelor of Social Work program. So again, keep in mind, if you're not yet a University of Utah student, do also complete the U of U application, as well as apply to the Bachelor of Social Work program. And there is language here on the instructions on the page that directs you to do that. So if you forget, just make sure you're reading all the instructions, and you will have some information about the Office of Admission website, as Anna's highlighting here. Again, the instructions do show you things like the deadlines, the prerequisites, and they provide a lot more detail than what we've shown you here. So please do read through these carefully to make sure that you've met all eligibility requirements and that you're prepared to begin the application. We do notify applicants of our decisions on their applications within about 6 weeks of the application due date. So that means that if you submit your application for the April 1st due date, even if you submit your application quite early, like you submit it in February, we're not actually going to start reviewing your application until the first week of April after all applications are due. And then we'll notify students of their admission decision within 6 weeks of that due date. So right now, what Anna is showing you is 2 different parts to the application. So there are 2 online forms that you're going to need to complete. One of them has to do with identifying who your references are, so who is going to recommend you for the program. And this online system is user-friendly, and it allows you to just really type in who you want to receive a link to our survey about you, the recommendation survey, and who you want to upload a letter of recommendation. So what you would do here is you would indicate some information about yourself, like when you're applying. So you'll notice what Anna's doing here. And then down below, you have 3 different spots. 2 of them are required. 1 of them is the optional 3rd recommendation. So you'll enter the name and the email address, as well as your relationship to the recommender. So is it your supervisor? Is it a professor, etc.? And then on the bottom there, it asks you whether you waive your right to review the recommendation or not. So be thinking about, if you feel confident in the recommendations and what your recommenders will say about you, go ahead and waive your right. It just shows that you are confident in their assessment of you. And if you do not waive your right, then you do have the ability to see a recommendation later. However, the committee might not consider it as being the most sort of unvarnished, honest assessment of how you've done. And your recommender can see whether you have waived your right or not. So just some pointers there. Again, you have the 3 different spots, 2 recommenders are required, and then the 3rd one is optional. We recommend that people ask 3 different people to receive this link, just in case one of them doesn't do it in time. And Anna will provide more details about the recommendations shortly. So we ask that you fill in this form pretty soon once you've decided to apply, because you want to give your recommenders enough time. And then that you begin working on the program application form, which is this button here at the bottom. So when you click on it, just know a couple pointers about our system. So this is not a system where you can begin working on it, save your work, and go back. You can look at it as many times as you want, but it's not going to save your work. So click on it. Don't worry that you're doing anything bad. You're not causing any damage, but it's not saving your input. What you could do, however, is look at it so that you can plan what's being asked of you. So you can start to gather your documents, type your personal statement, do all the things that it's going to ask you to do, and then you can upload and submit everything by the deadline of April 1st or October 1st. So what Anna's showing you here, you're going to indicate which semester you're applying for. That's really critical. And which academic year. Under cohort, where she has highlighted right now, this is really important. You have to select one of these. So either you prefer to learn on campus, and by the way, our campus courses are held on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays in the daytime between the hours of about 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. with a lunch break in between. So that's kind of the window of time that you can expect classes to take place if you're a campus student. If you're an online student, we're referring to purely online asynchronous courses that don't have a specific meet time, but do have modules you need to complete and due dates for assignments and things like that. So think about, do you want to take live classes, or do you need a little bit more flexibility to not have specific due dates? I'm sorry, not have specific meeting times where you all have to log in. You'll still have due dates. And then during the pandemic, something to keep in mind is that campus students We'll still have live classes, but some or all of those classes, depending on public health protocol, may be held live via Zoom or via some other video conferencing feature until it's safe to return to campus. If you have no preference on those campus/live classes or online/not live classes, then you could put no preference. But just keep in mind, then if you're admitted, we're going to place you where we have room to place you. So you do need to commit to whatever is being offered to you then at that time if you accept your admission. As far as your enrollment status, just keep in mind that this has no bearing on whether or not you get admitted. Sometimes I have students who worry about this. So just answer honestly if you're going to be a full-time or part-time student. That just helps us plan how many course sections to offer, how many students, we can expect in a cohort. But if you have a strong application, whether or not you're, full-time is not going to matter. It's just, you've got to go at the pace that makes sense for you. There is a substance use disorder certificate program that you can learn more about through our advising office or clicking on the link that's provided. So if you decide that you want to also apply for it, the reason it asks you a question about it is because you can use this application to count for both the BSW program and the certificate application. Just saves you time. So if you do decide that you want to apply for it as well, just click yes. If you're not interested, just click no. There's some additional personal information that it will ask you, and so you'll just fill out that info. And then when you scroll down below, you'll see that there's some documents you're going to be asked to upload. So you'll notice that the system is going to ask you if you've already chosen your professional evaluators. That's that first button that we showed you about selecting who's going to recommend you. If you haven't, it'll prompt you to do that. And then down below, you'll be asked to attach your personal statement, which we're going to talk about shortly. But if you'll notice, you can see the questions here in the application. So when you're planning your document, go back to this application and use it to help guide you. And then for the resume, same thing. You're going to see a description of what we're asking for, and let that help guide you as you work through that document and attach it. For your transcripts, we do want copies of your higher education transcripts, as we mentioned before. We want those for any higher education courses that you've attempted at any institution of higher learning. And we don't want degree audits, we want actual transcripts. Those can be unofficial, so it's okay that you have opened them, but we do need them to be attached here as PDFs, and we need them to be legible. If you're currently taking a class, you'll notice down below that you'll be asked to attach a class schedule, so your current or anticipated class schedule. You'll also be asked to certify whether you have completed or will be completing your prereqs. And then you will also be asked to sign off on the NASW, or National Association of Social Workers, Code of Ethics. So we want you to actually read the Code of Ethics carefully. Make sure that this is a program and a profession that really matches your values and your interests, and that you agree to abide by this mission and Code of Ethics of social workers. And then you'll sign and date your document and submit. Thanks, Anna. The next thing that I want to share with students is information about background checks. Applicants should be aware that the College of Social Work does not conduct criminal background checks. However, many human service organizations and agencies require individuals to pass criminal background checks before entering field placements, which is for us called practicum. So practicum is required for completion of both the BSW, Bachelor of Social Work, and MSW, Master of Social Work programs. In addition, the Utah Division of Occupational and Professional Licensing, otherwise known as DOPL, may ask about your criminal history if you have one in the application for licensure, and may request an explanation. In some instances, candidates with extensive or recent criminal backgrounds may be unable to secure a social work license in the state of Utah. Any questions that you have related to licensing in the state of Utah should be directed to DOPL. So we've listed their website here. So keep in mind, again, the College of Social Work itself, the program, is not conducting the background checks, but we want you to be prepared and understand your rights and responsibilities and any limitations that you might have. We have had a number of students who may have had a rough patch in their life and, at some point in the distant past, and they were able to make really great changes. Maybe they were helped by a social worker along the way and now they want to pay it forward, but they do have that blemish on their criminal, background or on their history. So DOPL is a really great resource for finding out how they can work through that. And we've had, students be able to move forward and still get licensed, but it really depends on the offense, how long it's been, the extent of the criminal history. So you have resources there. We just want you to be able to check on those up front.
All right, well, now it's my turn to discuss the primary documents that you will need to submit as part of your BSW application. As Elizabeth mentioned previously, we'll talk about the letters of recommendation, your personal statement, and the BSW resume that you need to prepare. And so we talk about the letters of recommendation first here because this is something that you'll really want to give yourself plenty of time to prepare for. When you're thinking about folks who will be recommenders for you, making sure to give them, 4 weeks, 4 to 5 weeks to really make sure they can get their letters of recommendation in on time and write something that's really thoughtful and intentional about who you are. Most importantly, you want to make sure that you're spending some time with your recommenders. Make sure that you have a phone call or really sit down with them and talk with them about why it is that you're pursuing this program specifically, as well as why are you asking them to be a recommender? What about the experiences that you've shared really connect to social work? You want to set them up for success. So I've even had students really think about talking points they could provide their recommenders beforehand to really help them think through what are some of the experiences that I want them to talk about that really connect to social work? What are some of the strengths or the skills I want them to highlight for me in this letter? And I think what's most important to acknowledge here is that if your recommender has not received more insights from you before they receive their form, they may just write a more general letter for you that may say, oh, Anna's great. I'd love her to be a social worker one day. But honestly, that's not ideal. You want the letter to be specific. Your recommenders need to be able to provide examples of your work and speak to your specific work abilities and make that connection to relevancy in social work. So a broad general letter really isn't going to serve you well here. Which is why it's so important to make time to speak with your recommenders ahead of time and really talk through some of these important elements with them. As Elizabeth mentioned, you are required to submit 2 letters of recommendation for the application. However, we do recommend that you find at least 3 recommenders just in case. Just have that plan B. Because sometimes our recommenders are busy and maybe they miss the deadline. And so really staying in communication with your recommenders to make sure that they've sort of done their due diligence and have submitted the letters before your deadline is going to be really crucial. So find those three individuals to do this. As far as it relates to who can be a recommender for you, in our overview of the application itself, you may have seen some suggestions in the drop down menu of the letter of recommendation form. And so that would include supervisors, mentors, professors, faculty that you've worked with, employers, coworkers. So these have to be individuals that can really speak to your professional experiences, your skills and your strengths, and how those would connect to social work. As far as who cannot be a recommender, who we don't really want you to rely on for this in particular, is try and stay away from personal counselors. Friends that are social workers aren't a good option for this. Just because they're in the field doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be able to speak about your specific experiences. So if you have any questions about who would be a good fit or you're not sure, you can always talk to one of the advisors in the College of Social Work, such as Elizabeth or some of the others, who can really help you think through this and make sure that you're getting the right recommenders who can really speak to your experiences. We do recommend that you try to have at least one academic recommender, and trying, to just have a balance, I guess, of who your recommenders are. Just having all academics would not be ideal. You want to have a balance of maybe a supervisor, a professor, and maybe a mentor or an advisor, so that you're getting a good range of skills and experiences that they can speak to. So that's something to just keep in mind as well as you are thinking about who's going to be your recommenders. One of the last things I'll mention about this is there are two components to the letters of recommendation. So your recommenders have to submit a form that asks them questions specifically about you, an electronic form, but they also have to attach an actual letter of recommendation. And so those two components need to be there together in order for your recommender to submit and for it to be counted towards the application. And so, with the letter of recommendation, please encourage your recommender to put that letter on professional letterhead, ideally of the company that they work for is best, or the company that you all work together at is going to be best, just so that it shows that professional connection. And then, of course, there is the electronic form that they have to fill out as well, which we are going to get into next. So these are the questions that your recommenders will receive in this digital form that they get. And so, as you can see, there are questions here that ask them to sort of evaluate your skills, your strengths. In your opinion, what are the applicant's major strengths and weaknesses? And so this is some really helpful information to take back to your recommenders and discuss with them. And honestly, this workshop is one of the only places where you'll see these questions. You can't get these questions anywhere else unless it's directly sent to the recommenders. So if you have an opportunity to jot these down or screenshot this, it can be really helpful to take these questions to that meeting or to that phone conversation with your recommender to sort of discuss these areas and prepare them to feel confident to answer these questions about you. So you can kind of see those here, take a minute and screenshot or jot these down so that you feel prepared for that conversation. Did you have anything to add, Elizabeth, on the letters of recommendation?
Thanks, Anna. I think you covered it so well. Just a reminder to applicants to ensure that the people who are recommending them really know their work. I know that Anna was very specific about that, but that's a leading issue that we have when applicants are scored low on recommendations is the type of recommender. So definitely not your friend or family member who happens to be a social worker or your neighbor, and definitely not a, personal clinician like your personal therapist or counselor. And also the work that you do that's relevant to social work doesn't have to be paid. So this could be like a volunteer coordinator. It could be like a staff or faculty advisor at your university if you're transferring over who maybe you were engaged in a leadership experience with them. So it could take a variety of forms, but the person should know either your academic work or your potential in the social work field.
Great. Thanks, Elizabeth. All right, so we're going to move on to the next important component of the BSW application, which is the personal statement. And so we talk about this second because this is also an area that will take some of your time and important to dedicate enough time to. And so the personal statement will be really centered around these four primary questions that they provide you. And I think that's really important to note here because oftentimes we will see students who don't read the instructions and they just assume that the personal statement is one long paper about who they are and their life. But that is not the case for this application. There are specific prompts that you need to answer in order to really be able to check the box for the personal statement. And so one of the most important things that I tell students around formatting your personal statement is to make sure the actual question itself is in your personal statement. So really copying and pasting those questions that we reviewed in the application earlier, those actual statements need to be in your paper. And so it's sort of, you can see it sort of as, four mini essay questions in a sense. And we're going to go over all four of those questions just so you have an idea of what to expect and sort of what you can think about when writing and answering those four questions. The personal statement is 5 pages, double spaced. There is an optional 6th page that you can use to answer the optional GPA statement that we'll talk about as we go forward as well. But again, just crucial to make sure you're following instructions here and making sure that you're answering those 4 questions within the statement itself. So we're going to dive into the questions that you're going to see in the application that you'll want to answer. So question number 1 asks you to discuss your reasons for choosing to seek a BSW degree. What factors did you consider in deciding, and what alternative careers have you explored? This is a really important question to spend time on. And I know there's kind of a couple of questions within one question here. So even more reason to have this statement in your paper and make sure you're hitting each of these individual questions. This is also a question where we'll see folks kind of talk about their passion around social work, and often that can stem from their own personal life experiences. And so we do encourage you to think about that because that's often a lot of the reason that people come to social work. But you also want to be very careful about spending too much time diving into the depths of traumas or challenges that you've had. And we don't want to prevent you from being who you are and expressing yourself in this statement because that's important too. But making sure that you're spending your time connecting your experiences back to why you want to be a social worker and why you want to be in this program specifically. If you spend too much time talking about traumas or challenges, then that may appear to the committee that you haven't really healed or dealt with those things. And as social workers, you really want to make sure you've done your own personal work before you help and support others. So that's why we kind of talk about that. And I think the easiest, most helpful tip to make sure you're on track is just always make sure you're connecting what you're saying back to why social work and why you want to be in this field.
Anna, I'll just add there too. we definitely want to get to know the applicant. And as you mentioned, sometimes it is a personal experience that really prompted an applicant to decide to maybe make a career pivot or change their major, decide to become a social worker. So we love to read about those experiences, but again, within the context of, okay, how does this connect with the social work profession? And then what is the applicant doing now to prepare for joining the social work major as well as a social work field? And because you only have a total of 5 pages to answer at least 4 questions that are really complex, again, just brief statement regarding the life experiences or volunteerism, etc., but then really tying all that together in terms of how it actually has helped prepare you.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, Elizabeth, for adding that. And then question 2 really gets at an important piece where you want to highlight volunteer work or life experiences that have helped prepared you for social work. And so this is really where you want to pull out some of those relevant experiences, talk about issues and populations that you really have enjoyed working with and want to continue to serve within social work. So this is a time to really be specific and give us examples of experiences you've had that you really feel have given you some of these strengths in supporting marginalized populations, supporting communities that you're passionate about. That's really what question 2 is here for. And I know this might be a challenging one to really think about, how am I going to fit all of my experiences into this one question, but I really encourage you to think about what are the ones that are most impactful and the most relevant to social work that you can speak about. That's what's really important here, is to really hone in on those more relevant experiences you have.
And that's a good point, Anna. So the personal statement, tell more of a story, choose a couple of examples. And
Mhm.
then in your resume, you can provide more detail as to the longer list of accomplishments you've had or work experiences or volunteer experiences that you've had.
Exactly. Yes, that's one of the benefits of the resume, is it can, really showcase everything you've done, and then here in the personal statement, you just kind of hone in on a few of them. So great. Moving on. Question number 3 asks, with regard to working with people whose gender, culture, ethnicity, or sexual orientation are different from your own, what do you consider your personal strengths, needs for growth, and limitations? So this question can be kind of scary or overwhelming to some students, but just know that, this is a real question for you to showcase your ability to reflect on what are your areas for growth in pursuing social work. And I know sometimes we feel like we kind of have to present ourselves a certain way, especially in the personal statement of like, I have all these skills and I'm so prepared, which is great, but also acknowledging where you need to grow, what areas you need to learn, where do you need more understanding in this area of social work. And so, most importantly, with question 3, you really want to use the language they're giving you in the question. So, for example, being able to say, I haven't had a lot of experience supporting others who have a different sexual orientation than my own. However, I know how important that will be in my social work field or in my social work career. So I will, do what it takes to understand or pursue courses that will help me understand that area more. So it's really important to use the language and identify these 4 areas for yourself and where you feel like you may have strengths or have more experience. And then what are some areas within these 4 where you may have some gaps or want to know more or want to learn more. So limitations, and that's okay to identify areas for growth or limitations. If you had all the skills and all the experience that was required for social work, you'd already be a social worker, right? So you're here to learn and grow. And so that's why it's really important in this question in particular to acknowledge where you want to learn, where you want to grow, and what might be some of your limitations based on your experiences. Anything to add there, Elizabeth?
I think that it seems to me that sometimes people worry that some of these are trick questions,
Mhm.
or that they require a very specific answer. The committee is looking for one thing from me. And I think that we all have different experiences. And what we're really asking, and what Anna is hinting at here, is that you're a reflective future practitioner and you're a reflective student. So these are not trick questions, particularly with question 3 and 4, which Anna will cover in a minute. I think people can feel more trepidation or more anxiety around these questions than the first two. And
Mhm.
then the other thing I would also mention is that we're asking for a lot of information here. So really try to budget your space. So earlier, Anna mentioned you have 5 pages and you have 4 key questions. So about a page and some change for each one, but just know that these are not listed in order of importance, but
Mhm.
rather the committee wants to read your answers for each of these questions. And what we'll often find is that people spend the most time on questions 1 and 2, probably because they appear first.
Mhm.
Um, and it's perhaps easier to talk about why you want to be a social worker, or write about that. And then they start to run out of room
Mhm.
for this other half, questions 3 and 4. So just be mindful and budget your time and your space, because these
Mhm.
questions are just as important as the first two.
Yes, thank you so much, Elizabeth. That's a great point. You really want to spend equal amount of space on each of these questions. If you only have a short paragraph for question 4 and then question 1 is 2 pages or 3 pages long, that's going to be sort of a disconnect. You want to make sure you're giving an even amount of content and answers for each of these questions if you really can. And then question 4 goes on to a statement. So respond in detail to this statement. People get what they deserve. We can't necessarily give you too much information on this one other than, this is an opportunity for you to share your opinion of this statement. Give us some insights into why you feel that way. If there are experiences that have informed why you feel that way, to say so. Really, this is a social justice statement. And so that's what we're really wanting to see here and kind of get an idea of where you're at with that. So, again, just really respond to this in an honest and authentic way. And if you can give some reasoning or some examples as to why you feel that way, that will be really great for this question. Awesome. Question number 5 is optional. And so this is for those folks who their GPA is 2.35 or lower. And so the committee gives,
Sorry, I've got to interject. It would be
oh, yeah,
for those below a 3.0, but they would still have to have at least a 2.35 to be eligible to
right.
apply. So
Yes,
anyone from the 2.35 range up to a 3, this statement is for
right.
you. If you have above a 3.0, you don't need to answer this question.
Right. Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. Yes. So this optional statement can, like we've said, can potentially go on to a 6th page, can be 1 or 2 paragraphs. This is an opportunity if you've had a lower GPA in the past to really acknowledge what happened there. And, we understand that, so much happens in life and that can really affect your academics and your GPA. And so it's just important if you're in that lower range, you can use this as an opportunity to, one, acknowledge what happened, what was sort of the struggle there, and why your GPA suffered. And then the next component is really making sure that you acknowledge how you overcame that and how you're now more prepared for academic success at the University of Utah and in the social work program. And so you don't need to spend tons and tons of time walking us through every single thing that happened, but just giving us a brief overview of what the struggle was, how you've overcome that, and how you're now ready to take on your academics moving forward. So that's really what that additional GPA statement is for, and is there for you if you need it. Excellent. All right. So the next component of the BSW application is the resume, as we've mentioned. And this is a really important tool to help showcase your broad range of skills and experiences, but also to highlight some of those relevant pieces. And so I'm going to spend some time walking you through not only some of the formatting components that you'll want to think about, but also how to develop really strong content for your resume. And so the resume can be up to 2 pages long. Just know that. For today, we're just using a 1-page resume to show you this sample. But again, if you have more experience or you've been out in the work world for some time, do not hesitate to use a second page to showcase those experiences and skills. And so some of the first things that I want to highlight here on this resume are the formatting. When you stare at this resume or glance at this resume for the first time, you see a really great even amount of white space and text, which is really important. You don't want to inundate the reader with all the text, right? So that's another reason why we say if you need to use a second page, do so that you can really keep the visual piece engaging and not overwhelming for the reader. Another couple of things that are really important to note here is your education section will want to be at the top. If you are currently pursuing an associate's degree, or if you're at the U pursuing your bachelor's degree, you'll want those educational degrees up at the top of your resume first and foremost. High school education can now come off the resume in the education section. If you are pursuing an associate's or if you are at the U, the committee knows that you've received your high school diploma or your GED, so you do not need high school in the education section. You'll notice that this student has done a really great job of showcasing some of their relevant coursework as well. And this can be really helpful to show that you have an invested interest in topics that may connect or relate to social work or human services work. So you'll notice this student has put classes like world religions or ethnic studies. They even have this inequality through music and film course, which is really great. And so this section isn't for prerequisite courses for the program, because everyone's going to have those courses coming into the social work program. This relevant coursework section is for you to showcase electives or additional courses you've taken out of your own interest or pursuit of social services or human services oriented work. So use this as an opportunity to show that. Even language courses can go here too. I've seen folks indicate some of their Spanish language courses because that may be very relevant to the work they're doing. So just know that can be a really great section to include here in education.
I'll add too, Anna, on that piece. Sometimes we have students who are currently at the University of Utah as pre-BSW students, and they have already done their prereqs, but now they're working on a few social work courses that are available to pre-majors but count toward the degree. Please list those. So if you're taking our social work statistics class, for example, or our social work writing class, those are classes where you can showcase that you're already ahead of the game. You have a higher chance, right, in theory, of completing the program because you're already well into the requirements. So this is a wonderful place to highlight that information. And I think that matters to the committee.
Excellent. Thank you, Elizabeth. Yeah, so there are some other sections here you'll see, like a professional experience, community engagement, certificate, and skills. So it is really helpful to have sections that can break up your experiences on your resume, so it's not just one long list of everything you've ever done. And this can help you as well sort of organize your experiences. And so that's something to think about. Also, you'll notice that this student has done a really great job using bullet points instead of paragraphs. That's also very important on a resume. Paragraphs are usually very long and harder to read, and we want this document to be quick and scannable to read. And so that's what those bullet points will do for you. You'll also notice the resume is in what we call reverse chronological order. So whatever you're currently doing or presently a part of, that should be at the top of your section and then go down from there. And you'll notice that this student has done a great job of anything that she is presently doing is at the top, and then it'll go down from there. You'll also notice that the student is indicating their hours that they've committed to each of these positions. And that is a requirement for the resume for the BSW application. So making sure you're putting in how many hours per week or hours total you've spent at each of these organizations or in each of these positions you've had. Obviously, if you're in a full-time position, you don't need to add up all your total hours. 40 hours per week is fine to indicate. If it was a 1 day of service, you can say 20 hours total or 10 hours total. So just remember that that component is crucial, and you'll want to include the hours for each of your positions. Also, you'll notice the dates are all shifted on the far right side of the page, and that is also very much encouraged. Having dates ahead of some of the other information on the left side can be kind of distracting. So making sure your dates are included on the far right. You want to make sure you're using month and year, trying if you can to stay away from using semesters like spring 2020 or fall 2020. That doesn't really help us understand the exact amount of time that you've been at an organization or in a position. So using month and year is best. And then if you've been in more than one position in one organization, you can see how to list that here. So this student worked at Mestizo's Art and Activism, started out as a mentor, and then moved into a student advocate position. So just know if you've been in the same organization and have moved up, you'll want to showcase that, and that's how you can do that here. The last kind of component on the resume that I want to encourage you all to think about is your content. It's really important that you're showcasing your transferability into social work. And I know sometimes students struggle with the resume portion because they feel like maybe their experiences aren't super relevant to social work yet. However, we have some really great tools that can help you transition your experiences that maybe don't feel as human services oriented or social work oriented, and showcase those skills that you gained that are going to help you and prepare you to be a strong social worker. And so we have not only this resume sample for you, but we also have an action verb list that we give to any student who attends our BSW Application Workshop. And that action verb list will help you write really strong bullet points that tie to social work, and it will give you language to use to tie your experiences to social work. For example, you can see here in this Office of Engagement University of Utah position that Anita mentions, she uses words like recruited, helped, advised. And I think that's really great because oftentimes with the social work application, we see words like supported or helped too often, right? Or they're using it so much. I helped, I helped, I helped. You really want to showcase some other skill sets you have that may be within that same sort of term or umbrella term. But there are other words that relate to social work like facilitated or coached or corresponded that you could really use to showcase that you have a variety of skills. And you'll see that there are a variety of those down below, like mentored and provided and referred and guided. So making sure that you're using a different action verb for each bullet point is very helpful. Then you'll also notice that Anita has also been very specific about who she's been serving or supporting. And that is very important for social work students to indicate. What populations have you been working with? Who have you been serving? Are there age groups you could indicate? For example, in the same position, the student, she says she recruited on average 100 low-income first-generation students. So she doesn't just say, oh, I worked with students. She says how many and who they are and what their identities or their population or what the population of students they are and what she helped them do. So adding in numbers can be a great way to showcase accomplishment in a resume. So even if it's just a few, it doesn't have to be 100 for it to make an impact. In her mentorship role, she even says she mentored 2 mentees, right? Which is actually a lot of work. And so we would be missing that if she just said, I mentored students, right? And she adds that first generation component. She adds some of the specifics about what she helped them do. Just saying I helped students isn't enough. I helped them adapt to college life and utilize campus resources. So you want to be specific so that your unique experiences stand out. And that's how the resume really can help you, is with those specifics that you can add in. So I know the resume can be a challenging document and is very much always evolving. And so as a career coach and the liaison to the College of Social Work, I am always happy to help students work on their resumes and help them get them to a place where it feels like they're representing themselves as a student who's pursuing social work. So if you are struggling with that or want additional support, myself and some of the advisors in the College of Social Work can help you do that. All right. So yeah, we've reached the end of our workshop today. We hope that this information has been helpful to you. In all honesty, if you're watching this or attending one of our workshops, you are ahead of the game. I think the most important thing that we could tell you is to follow the instructions, but also use this resource to help you through your documents. And don't hesitate to get help along the way. I think that's also really important. As Elizabeth mentioned, meeting with an advisor to make sure you have all your prereqs ready, not hesitating to reach out if you need a second pair of eyes on your personal statement or on your resume. So we are here to support you through this process. As a career coach for the University of Utah, I am able to have appointments with students who have a UID or who are U of U students. So if you would like to make an appointment with me, there is a QR code here on your screen, and that will take you to our appointment page where you can make an appointment with me. There is a BSW application review option in Handshake where you can make an appointment. So please feel free to do so, and I look forward to working with you.
Thank you, Anna. And then if you are not yet a U of U student because you are still completing the transfer application process with the Office of Admissions as well as the BSW application, but you would like some help, then you would not be able to book an appointment with Anna because the handshake system will require your UID. So if you need help, you are more than welcome to contact bsw@utah.edu with questions, or using the QR code, book an appointment with an academic advisor from the College of Social Work. And then your home institution where you are still finishing up your general education or your prerequisites, whether that's a community college or another institution, likely also has a career center. So they can also help you with your resume. Your writing center at your home institution may be able to provide some support around the personal statement. So you have a wide variety of options, and we are here to help you. So please utilize your many resources and just know that we're here for you along the way if you have questions. And then another plug for if you need more information about the program itself. So what does it look like to be a BSW student? What are the features of the program itself? You can go to our social work advising website, which is socialwork.utah.edu/advising, or use the QR code here, and you can book some time to attend a live BSW information session, which we're hosting via Zoom throughout the pandemic.
Great.
Thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you.